Conversations at the kitchen table. When you're a real estate agent, those things are consistently changing, and it's changing because what's on people's minds, the obstacles that they're facing change. The economy changes, the market changes. What's important to people at various stages of their life with current events and what's going on a micro level at home, macro level with the economy, the world, etc. The conversations, if you're doing a great job of coming from an empathetic perspective, the conversations at the dinner table change. So the conversations that are happening very often right now with people that are considering selling their home, this idea of how are the rising interest rates going to affect me when I go to sell my home this year? Oftentimes, when you're getting to that spot, they're looking to you. Sure, people are going to look around for their own resources, and what are they going to see? They're going to see they're going to see what grabs headlines. They're going to see what pulls people's attention. That's going to be the negative. When we get to this point, they're already going to have a lot of ideas about what rising interest rates and transitioning in the market is going to have an effect on them and their home. So the first thing that you absolutely need to start with every single time is questions. Well, tell me about how you're feeling. Tell me about what you've been reading, what you've heard. How do you see this experience going? Where do you think we fit in the market? What do you see as being some of the obstacles moving forward as we go to sell your home in the coming months? Once you have those, it gives you a good foundation to build off of. And I have some notes here, some of the things that I think are really important for you to study and understand ahead of time. So when you get to that spot, you can speak from a position of education and overcome some of those concerns that you're going to run into at the kitchen table. 1, explaining the relationship between interest rates and affordability, right? Because we're talking about two different things. Now, affordability is the general population's ability to afford the average home price in the area. The average home price could be pretty affordable. Say $300,000, $350,000. Here locally, it's about $400,000 currently. The way that we get to that average price point is over time, the most amount of homes have been purchased by the average buyer at this price point. Now, when you see something happen like interest rates that had been sitting around 3-4% for a long period of time rise to 5-6, 6.5%, you see that affect people's ability to afford those homes. Instead of at $300,000 looking at a payment of $2,000, now that interest rates have gone up, you're seeing that $2,000 monthly payment maybe rise to $2,500, $2,600, $2,700 a month. And that is going to affect how high people are pre-approved, how much they can afford, and their ability to purchase homes at that median price point. So explaining that to your seller that, hey, the way that we are figuring out pricing, the way that this is done is comparable to like homes that have sold recently. If those like homes that have sold recently were sold at an average of a 3 to 3.5% interest rate, and now we're working with a 5 or to a 6% interest rate, the number of buyers in that pool that produced those results prior has shrunken. And we're dealing with a smaller buyer pool that is going to have effect on our affordability and the number of, i.e., the number of people who are interested in buying our home. Number 2, highlight the potential impact on the housing market in general. So as interest rates are changing, what is the potential impact moving forward? Right now, we're in a place where interest rates were going down. Now we're starting to see them trend back up. As interest rates were going down, what did we see? We saw prior to interest rates rising, it was mostly people from out of town purchasing here locally. Okay, we saw people coming from all sorts of metro areas buying here, and the local population was boxed out of the market. As we saw interest rates shift and change, we saw an invigorated local population who had opted out of participating the last couple of years, now getting in for their opportunity. As we see interest rates start to rise back up again, I think we're going to see that slow down and have an overall effect on the market as a whole. Another thing to consider is, how are interest rates going to affect our competitive pricing? Like I said before, if homes that we're basing our price off of comparable homes that had sold in the last 3 to 6 months. If those and what we have to keep in mind when we're talking about pricing is the environment that the market was in, that the buyers were in, that demanded that price, or that created that price, compared to the environment the buyers are in today. It's different. And that is going to have an effect on our general pricing strategy to make sure that we tap into the most buyers possible. Another really important conversation, I think, as interest rates are rising is talking about creative financing. Conversations we haven't had to have in the last 5-6 years because there was such a lopside in demand versus inventory. We've seen inventory rise. There's more competition. In what ways can we be creative to appeal to more buyers, to open up our buyer pool? And this is a great way to bring up things like investigating your current mortgage to see if it is assumable, or talking about if they own the home outright. This might be a great opportunity. Did you know that 45% of homes in the United States are owned completely outright? Who owns those homes? People that are getting close to or at retirement age. If they sell that home all at once, they're going to get a huge tax hit, right? They're going to get hammered, and it's keeping a lot of people from making that move. But if we can educate them about the owner financing route, where they're getting a much smaller down payment, not as big of a tax hit, they're getting interest rate over the next 5 to 10 years, they're creating a source of consistent income, it is a great opportunity for the right person. And it's our responsibility to help sure that people understand what opportunities they have, what their options are. Last thing I'm going to bring up is, when you're sitting at the table with a seller discussing how interest rates are having an effect on their ability to sell, having an honest and empathetic conversation about timing is important. It is not our job to convince somebody that right now is the best time to buy. You might earnestly believe that it is or it isn't. It is our job to make sure we are asking enough questions to understand their goals and educating them with their resources so that they can make the best educated decision, weighing out the pros and cons of when is going to be the right time to sell. I can promise you this: if you push too hard to get somebody to sell and it's not the right time, you will lose them as a client for life. But if you give somebody the information they need to understand that for them, it's going to be better for them to wait 3 to 6 months to sell, or maybe even next year, you will earn yourself a client for life and the referrals that come along with nurturing that relationship. So I hope this has been a helpful video, some information when you're sitting at the kitchen table, having conversations about what it's going to take to sell right now, and see you next time.